All right, good morning. You guys awake yet? All right, same answer as the first session. Good deal. So this next session, we're going to talk about data visualization with Nagios. Since we are going to look at some visualization tools, it might be advantageous if you want to move to the front half of the room. It might be a little more interesting since you can actually be able to see the screen better. It's up to you, but I would encourage you to be in the front half of the room so you can actually see a little bit better for the screen. So as long as we're not packed out. First thing I want to just look at is, why would we use data visualization for those of us who are system admins and who are doing monitoring? Some of the biggest reasons is that data visualizations, it turns raw data into useful information. Data by itself can be in pretty huge quantities. Just looking at lots and lots of status information and things like that, it's very, very useful day to day, but on a bigger picture and on a bigger scale, by itself sometimes it's not very, very useful information. And so sometimes we need a visualization to be able to just take our understanding of what's going on to the next level. Data visualization, it can communicate complex ideas and information in an understandable format for maybe non-technical users or people who aren't necessarily familiar with everything that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And this is a big one I hear too quite a bit, is that it can communicate technical information to a non-technical user. Something I hear from a lot of people is they need to be able to show the management who are not technical what's going on and what's happening with their data, and you need some sort of a visualization tool to do that. And I think Jeff Sly, who gave a presentation yesterday, he kind of nailed it on the head. He said, if you're going to sell something to your management, it has to look pretty. And I've heard that time and time again. We had some guys come into the office. They just wanted to pick our brains for about 2 hours. It was sometime last year, and they came in and they were talking, and they said their management, they were willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on a visualization tool where all it was a globe that spun and just had a little blinking dot for a host, whether it was green for good, red for bad, and that's all it did. And they were literally spending over $100,000 a year just for this single add-on. That was yes, exactly, and this was And these are the managers. They just thought it was the coolest thing ever. They loved it. They were willing to spend just crazy amounts of money on it because they thought it was super, super cool. Now, from an IT perspective, a blinking dot on a globe really is not especially helpful. It's like, okay, I know the continent where something's broken. That's great. But on a day-to-day level, that doesn't really help you all that much from the technical standpoint. It doesn't help you pin it down. But that just illustrates the point. If you have a visualization, you can really sell something to your management. And I know sometimes that's a struggle, say, with Nagios core users, is that it doesn't by itself, it's extremely useful from a monitoring perspective, but sometimes it doesn't look pretty enough to be able to sell to the management. So some of what I'm going to cover in this presentation is just some different tools that are out there that you guys may or may not know about. I'm not actually going to talk about PNP or Nagios Graph because I generally assume probably 90 to 95% of people are already using it, one of those two. It's from most people that I talk to, those are pretty standard tools just for performance graphing. It's a common tool that's out there, so I'm not actually going to cover that in this presentation. Before I go any farther, too, I also want to mention I want this to be somewhat interactive as well, so I want you guys to feel free to raise your hand and interrupt me, because I'd like to have this be a little more discussion-oriented than just me talking at you guys for 40 minutes. So, especially since we all probably had a fun night last night, and so we're all probably dragging a little bit this morning. So, figure if it's a little more discussion-based, we'll all stay a little more awake this morning. So, just moving on. One thing, too, as I've talked to other people with larger environments, as your environment gets larger, data visualization becomes more and more important just because the scale of the data, you can't view 50,000 things in a table. It's not practical. It doesn't give you useful information. I was talking with a guy last night who had just an enormous amount of services that he was monitoring, and he wasn't actually using the Nagios Core GUI at all to view his information. He was literally just using it just for the monitoring and then literally just sending all the data up a larger up a level to basically have it all aggregated and turned into a visualization, because that's the only way they were able to effectively view their data, is in some sort of visualization tool instead of just a table, because they just had too much information. And so it's just important to aggregate data into some sort of visual tool. So another handy tool of data visualization is sometimes it can very, very clearly reveal where a problem is, where simply the raw data itself cannot do. My favorite classic example of this, and several of us have probably experienced this, I'm going to use the example of the cable company conversation. How many of us here have had this conversation with the cable company? Hey, my internet's garbage. What can we do about it? And of course, you get level 1 help desk support, and they're like, oh, I can ping you. Looks fine to me. And you're like, no, that's not going to work. You know, us being Nagios users, that's just not acceptable. It's not okay. So what do we inherently do? And say, okay, well, we set up Nagios monitoring and so forth. And this is a true story. I've done this literally more than once. My family's got a cabin up in northern Minnesota. We were literally losing internet connection between like 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning and 7 to 9 p.m. every night, basically when everybody else was using internet. We like pretty much lost all connectivity. And you know, call the cable company, and we get the guy on the phone. He's like, yeah, I can ping it just fine. Maybe it's your computer, maybe it's your router, all that stuff. And I'm just like, no, it's not. But thanks anyway. So you know, I set up monitoring on it for about a week, and then basically, you know, call back a few days later, and talk to the guy and say, here, why don't you take a look at this? This is and of course, you know, I blurred it out so they wouldn't name any names for companies, but this was the actual DNS name of the IP address that it was resolving to. That's all blurred out up there. And I said, okay, this is the packet loss to my IP address being monitored externally for like the last 5 days. Notice that several times throughout the day it's at 100%. Does this look fine to you? And of course, the results. Sudden flurry of activity, ports are being replaced, there's a technician out there, 2 or 3 days later, suddenly there's drastic improvement. Literally, I've done this more than once where, you know, somebody's saying, oh yeah, I don't see any problem, I can get through to it just fine, because at that moment, you know, yes, it is working, but reliability is down. And visualization, it's really hard to argue with this and say, does this look reliable to you? You know, and you can't really argue with that. And so that to me, it's like, that's why I love visualizations. It's like, you know, it can clearly point out where there's a problem. Okay, these times a day, you got a problem going on here. Something's happening. What can you guys do about it? And it's pretty clear, and you get action taken out of it, which is ultimately what we want. And you know, it's a great trick if, you know, your internet at your house ever goes out and the cable company's not wanting to do something about it for you. So. All right, so the first visualization tool I want to point out to you guys, a lot of you guys might be familiar with this one already, but I do want to go over with it with you guys just because I think it's a really powerful tool, and there's a lot of things that can be done with it. It's called NagViz, and this is a community project, and so it's totally free, and a couple things that are pretty cool about it. It's a long-standing project. It's been around for a while. It's well maintained. There's some level of community support. There is a forum for it and so forth, but see a lot of updates for it. And for those of you using broker modules like NDO Utils, Merlin, MK Live, it will interface with pretty much any of the common broker modules that you might have for your backend data. And it gives you live status information on some sort of map or visualization. This is just an auto map. This is the most basic tool that it auto-generates this for you based on your parent and child relationships with your hosts. This might actually be an older version. I think the newer version has it looking a little nicer than this. I went for screenshots for some of these because live demos can sometimes turn out interesting and break. So, and some of these maps can take quite a while to set up. So I wanted to just show you the potential for this particular project. Now you'll notice this is a great way to diagram your network topology, but also the green check marks throughout it are actual live status information that's being displayed. So as your status updates in Nagios, it will actually show in these check boxes. So if something goes down, you'll actually be able to see it on this map as well. This is a great thing to throw up on a big old knock screen if you've got one. Again, management walks by, they see something like this, they're like, that is awesome, I love it. don't really understand what's happening, but it looks really cool, and obviously good things are happening here. So things like this, again, great way to sell a product to management, because I know some people, they have to fight to actually keep Nagios because something looks prettier but doesn't necessarily work as well. So these do take a while to set up. I don't want to sugarcoat this, that if you've never used NagViz before and you're coming into it for the first time, there is a little bit of a learning curve in coming into it, learning how to set up the maps itself. That's why I didn't actually set up the maps myself, because I just, in trying to cover several different tools, it's like I didn't want to take the time to actually learn how to create a really cool map on every single one. So these are screenshots actually from the NagViz website of different maps that have been created. Another one, this is a little more complex map, just diagramming like the email system, evil server, and so forth. But again, live status information's just a great way to view the overall processes going on. It can give you kind of a business process look at your network topology. This one, things like this I also find is really cool, very, very practical for the IT guys having to mess with this every single day. Just a plain old picture of the server room. They slap the check marks on it with the status bubbles. So these will also update as Nagios updates as well. So if something goes down, you got a big old rack mount server, you forget which physical box it actually is that's having a problem. This is just a great way to view it and to visualize it. This one here just showing a warning indication on the box on the floor. I think I've got another one like this. And for a much larger rack mount system, again, same kind of diagram. You can use a picture, you can use a map, you can use whatever you need to use to visualize your network topology with this tool. This is on a geographic map. I think the new version also will work with, I believe it will work with Google Maps. I haven't used the newest version recently. But again, gives you a nice network topology. You can map out your network and give a nice diagram. And as I said, management loves things like this because it just gives them a clear idea of, okay, this is good or bad, and they don't need to know all the technical information behind it that's going on. A couple other things about NagViz is that it is most of the work in NagViz is client side. It's JavaScript based, so it's fairly responsive. It's fairly snappy working with it in the interface. It's not taxing your server too bad. All it is pulling the event broker for the data, and then the rest of the work happens client side in the browser. So it shouldn't be a huge tax on your system to add this as a visualization. So, and yeah, as you can see, pretty flexible in terms of the types of maps it can create. Another tool that's actually kind of a new kid on the block in terms of a Nagios mapping tool. It's called Op Services DaVinci. Op Services is a Brazilian company that they have a Nagios-based product, but they've released a visualization tool called DaVinci that it is a commercial project, but with that comes commercial support and commercial maintenance, which can be pretty nice. And this works for Nagios Core or XI. They developed something called Nagios ANA adapter, and it's basically like a wrapper for the different broker modules. So when you install it, the installer is super nice, and that's when I ran through it, it asks you about 3 questions. It just says, is this a Core XI installation? I just say, I was testing it on XI, so I said XI. I would say, okay, what's your backend broker module? NDO utils, enter. About 2 minutes later, it was installed, done, everything worked right out of the box. And so it installs the way a commercial product should, where pretty much it just takes care of everything for you. It's very, very easy to set up. And I'll show you some pictures of it in just a moment. I'll come back to the points here in just a moment. Mapping and diagramming is actually pretty simple. The learning curve with this particular project I find to be much, much simpler. Because it's a commercial product, it's a kind of a user interface you can walk into, look at it for the first time, and within 10-15 minutes you kind of have a pretty good idea of how things are working with it. It's fairly intuitive. You can just look at it and for the most part figure out how it's working. I was able to start creating maps within 10-15 minutes of tinkering around with it. and it was kind of fun. I got to be just kind of as a feedback person as they were developing us. They sent us the beta and they said, "Will you guys try this and give it a shot and let us know what you think of it?" And initially there's some things and kind of oddities about it and some bugs that I wasn't terribly happy with, and I thought it had awesome potential, and so I kind of sent him an email. And me being a developer myself, I mean, I hate having somebody rip to shreds something that I did and worked really hard on, and so I tried to be very positive and constructive and said, "I think what you've got here is has amazing potential. I really, really like where this is going, but I said there's some definite problem areas that I think people are going to find frustrating." And so I kind of gave him a bullet point and said, I think this is a weakness. I think it would be better improved, if you did this or that. And they emailed me back like 3 or 4 weeks later, and they're like, "Hey, we did all those fixes you suggested. Can you try it again?" And they literally went right down my bullet point list. They literally fixed everything I suggested, and they came right back to us. And after trying it the second time around, I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, this is a really, really great product, and I can definitely recommend this to people now." And first time wasn't so sure about it, but it was kind of cool just to be able to be a part of it. It's got some pretty cool eye candy. I'm a front-end developer. I love data visualization, so for me, it's like I see stuff like this, I'm like, that is awesome. It doesn't give you necessarily all the technical meat and potatoes that you might necessarily need, but again, it's an awesome thing for a knock screen, awesome thing to sell your project to management and say, look what this can do. And they love it. They can see clearly what's going on without actually understanding what's going on. And there's some pretty cool things that come with it. A lot of these widgets, these meters and things like that are just their own widget. And you basically say, okay, assign this meter to this service, and it basically just puts a meter to the service metric. So it's pretty cool on how it works. And these are real-time graphs that they'll update based on your status updates of your hosts and services. So it's pretty slick how it works. And this is the interface of actually where you're building the maps. It actually reminded me a little bit of I don't know if anybody's ever used Adobe products like Photoshop or anything like that. Some of the layouts and how things were broken down were kind of similar to that. I love Adobe products, so I think they're pretty intuitive. So I found this fairly easy transition to come into and figure out how to use just by looking at it. Now, this might matter to some people, it might not. This is a Flash-based application, so I found it is a little more sluggish than, say, something that's JavaScript, but I also think it totally makes up for it in the fact that it is a very friendly user interface to interact with. Just the fact that you're able to do it with Flash, there's more that you can do just to make the interface easier to use. And they definitely worked hard at doing that, where it's a friendly way to create a new map. It does come with a price tag, but if you're coming into it new and you don't want to take the time to learn, say, a free product like NagViz, it is a really good option, I think. I'm going to go back just a moment just to highlight a couple other things. Same deal as NagViz. It does use live status updates, so anything that you put on there, you connect it to a host or service, it will actually color code things. Like these different icons here, they can be green or red depending on the status of the host or service, whatever you actually assign it to. So these colors will actually update in real time as your monitoring environment changes. So, any questions so far? All right, cool. All right, so this next part, I'm going to spend a little more time on this next one just because I'm not going to lie, this is one that I wrote, but also I figure it's, if you're here with the developer of something, it's a unique opportunity. You can actually fire questions at me if you want. So this is something that I wrote just seeing as a general need in the monitoring community is just the idea of monitoring business processes. On a higher level view of everything, the management, they're going to look at, I want to know, as like Ethan was saying yesterday, I want to know the status of our e-commerce system. I want to know the status of our website or our online ordering system. They're looking at it as the overall business processes. And so we developed, we initially looked at business process add-ons, and we really liked what they had started there, but there were some things that I looked at it as a developer, and I'm like, I like the direction this is going. There's some things that I would want it to do differently. And so we looked at that for an idea, And I'm not a C developer, and so I couldn't dive in and make contributions to that project. So I'm a PHP guy, so I went for a PHP and jQuery approach for this particular project. And the way it works is it's a grouping tool that allows you to create dependencies and multiple levels of groups that ultimately make up your business processes. You can say, I want these 3 services and these 2 hosts and then this entire group of services to make up my business process. And you can set priorities on them and things like that, and you can actually see kind of a tree type of view of your services and of your business processes. And you can actually set up alerts for these groups as well as a way to kind of create more intelligent, smarter alerts. An example I like to use is, let's say you have 4 DNS servers, if that are just in a redundant cluster. If one of them goes down, not the end of the world. You have backups. You don't really need the 2 a.m. wake-up call to go run in and fix it. But if 2 or 3 of them go down, you're going to want that alert about it at any time of day to go in and fix it. And this is a tool that would allow you to do that. You could set a threshold and say, if 3 of these processes go down in this group, I want to receive an alert about it. And so I'm actually going to venture into some dangerous territory now and attempt a live demo. We have a saying at our office that it's not a good demo unless something breaks. So if something goes horribly, horribly wrong here, we'll just chalk it up to being a good demo. So, all right. So what I did here, I just set up some simple business processes here. I just own just a simple domain just to basically play around with, GuthrieFam.org. So I tried to break it into some business processes. Now you'll see at the highest level, I'm at a warning state for this business process. I'm like, okay, what's going on with my websites? And it's broken down by my different subdomains. And what do you know? Fake.GuthrieFam.org, which doesn't actually exist, is experiencing a problem. And I've got it set so that if one item in this particular business process in this level of the tree goes wrong, it will turn the group as a warning. And then in this particular sub-process here, these two basically cross a threshold to basically throw the whole group into a critical state. And some of this will be, let me kind of explain how a little bit of this works here for these business processes. I'll outline the logic for how it works, and then I'll come back and actually give you a demonstration for what it actually looks like. So the group logic works this way. The way that a group achieves a warning or critical state is according to the following rules, and I believe it is in this order. First, actually not in this order. But if all non-essential members are in a problem state, that is one way to trigger a warning or critical state. That'll actually throw a critical state. If any essential members, there are members that you can flag as this is an essential member of this group, and if any of those go down, the group will be in a critical state. The other thing you can set is a warning or critical threshold for a group. Say if a particular group exceeds my threshold of 3 problems, it will throw the entire group into warning states, whereas say if I set the critical threshold at 5 problems, it will throw the group into a critical state. And so it's fairly customizable. You kind of have to play with it a little bit for your environment to see how to set it up and how to make it work. But let me show you how a group is actually set up. All right, so I'm just kind of give an example of the tree structure. It gives a nice high-level overview, but everything you can continually, this tree can be an infinite level of numbers deep. So you can continue to expand this as deep as you want into your tree. So you can have a tree that's 25 layers deep if you want. It's totally dependent on how you set it up and how you configure it. And you can, as I mentioned, you can set up checks in Nagios against any level of these groups. So if you just want checks against your highest level group, you can do it that way. These subgroups, you can also set up checks against them as well. I just created just a basic demo group where I just threw a whole bunch of services in. And this one is just, mostly it's a flat group. I've got a couple members flagged at anything flagged with a star here just indicates that these are essential members of this group. If one of these goes into a problem state, it's going to throw the entire group into a problem state, whereas everything else is subject to the problem threshold. And I threw this together just to kind of give an idea of, you can continue to scroll down and go further deeper into the group process. So the way to set up a new group, it's fairly simple. You just got to give it a group ID. Just going to type in some junk. You can give it an information URL, so if you want to actually have an external link that this will point to, you can do that. Just for fun, I'll add a group. And I will have this be a primary group. A primary group means it is displayed at the top of the tree. Unchecking this will basically imply that it's going to be a subgroup that you're going to bring into the tree later on. I'm just gonna add some random members to this group. I am going to have a group as one of the members, and then I'm just going to add a bunch of services as well. So I can see all my groups here. If I want to add and remove ones, I can. And then if I want to tag a couple as essential. So let's say I will do DNS resolution for CNN.com. I'll have that be an essential member. So if that goes down, the whole group's going to become critical. And I'll do that one as essential as well. I can set my warning threshold, and this select box is dynamic. It's based on the total number that you have in your group. So as I add members to this group, this select box will continue to change and grow. So I'll set my warning threshold at 2, critical threshold at 5. And the display priorities, you can filter by high, low, or medium priority as far as viewing it. So we'll just have this one be low because this isn't actually for anything in particular. All right, so I've got that. I'm just going to review my group. Looks good. And of course, it's a good demo because my permissions aren't set for writing that. So, all right. Like I said, good demo. All right, let me try my other one real quick. All right, quick poll. Who wants to see me quick fix this and make it work, or should I continue? Should I fix it? Yes, no? All right, I'll quick fix it. Give me just a second. Feel free to chat amongst yourselves for just a moment. Of course, the classic demo line is, "It was working yesterday." So, all right, let me try this again. There we go. Okay. Group made. All right, so this one, this time around, I set it as a high priority. Currently, there's 3 problems in this group, but because my threshold, I did not set a threshold for this, so unless either one of my essential members, which are denoted here, unless one of those goes critical, or 100% of the non-essential members goes into a problem state, this group will still be okay. Another way to look at it, let me see, favorite websites. Now you'll notice CNN has 2 problems in this particular group. The DNS IP match is in critical because it pulls from a pool of IP addresses. And the ping is critical as well because they close their port for ping checks. And but I still, for this particular group, I have it set where unless the problem threshold is at 3, don't give me any problem warnings about it or anything, because I'm not terribly concerned about these two. So this group is still in an okay state. All right, so, and again, it's based on group dependency. You can essentially set up the rules and definitions however you want for your group. The group creation is a fairly quick process. Like, as you saw there, I was just able to throw some members in and create it and so forth. And then if anybody's using Nagios XI, I did also create a wizard, which I'm betting I didn't think to install. But let me just double check and see. Oh, lucky me. All right. So I have a BPI wizard, so I can actually, I'm just going to call it, now the host check is just a dummy check because it will create service checks underneath the host umbrella. So this gives me a list of all of my BPI groups, and I can just quick check which ones I want to run checks against. And all it is just a simple yes, no, is the group in a problem state, yes or no. But what's nice is that you can create alerts based on that. So you can have alerts for your business processes if you want. I'm not sure if I have these predefined or not. Let me take a quick look. Little VM. All right. And then as far as future of this particular project, this is one that I really feel has a lot of potential. Because I've actually gotten quite a few feature requests, both from Nagios XI users and core users. There are people that I've seen that actually, they turned this actually into their primary viewing interface for all of their hosts and services, just because for their environment, it just made more sense to view everything in the scope of a business process. And so some requests I've had are things like, they want this to be Ajax updating. They want to be able to sort their problems. So if they expand this group and there's 100 members of it, they want all of their problem states to rise to the top. So I think there are a lot of feature requests I get for this particular project. And I am currently in the middle of taking the sledgehammer to the code of this to try and overhaul it because I want to release a 2012 version. They'll do a couple new cool things. One is that I want it to auto-generate, have the option to auto-generate business processes based on your existing host and service groups. And so it'll basically say, do you want to create a business process for any of these host groups? And you can check which ones. It will generate a group for you, and then based on that, you can assign rules to that host group and say, all right, these 3 hosts out of this particular host group are critical, and the rest can be non-essential members. Basically, trying to take people's existing installations and turn it into more of a business process model. There goes my mouse. And then same thing with service groups, and then I also, my hope is to also do that with existing parent-child relationships that are already defined, so that you can also turn those into a business process view as well if you want. That's the goal, and my goal is early 2012, hopefully around January. The Nagios XI version of it, just because there's a lot of existing functions I can already use in XI as far as development goes. That's going to kind of be my pilot for getting some of this stuff set up and working. Once I get that working the way I want, I'm going to also, there will be a community new release for this as well that will hopefully have some of those features in there as I can get them working. So I have the Ajax part of it working where I can pull the data so that you can just leave this up, and however you have it opened and expanded, it will just remain that way, and then the data will just continue to refresh. So that way, if people want to throw this on their knock screen, they can, and it can just continually refresh the data for them. And let me show a quick example. All right, so fake.guthrieFam.org is having a problem. Let's take a look at it. I have this just set for all passive checks because I want it to be able to control the state of everything for it. So, quick. So I'm just going to demonstrate. I'm just going to submit a passive result. And I'm going to do this for the host as well, just so you can kind of see the effect it'll have for the BPI group. And of course, it takes a moment. All right, so of course a good demo. Yeah, let me see. All right. We will try a different method. So let's take a different approach for this. So let's say I'm going to just change the definition of this group. Let's say if I don't care that fake.guthrieFam.org, I really don't care if it goes down or not. I'm going to edit this group, and I'm going to change my threshold to 2 problems, change my critical threshold to 3, and let's write the configuration. Pull it up. Now suddenly my business process looks fine and dandy. Anybody looking at it from this top level can say, yep, we're fine. Because really, fake.guthrieFam.org, who cares? Because it doesn't actually exist. It's a non-essential service or non-essential business process. So just trying to give a little bit of a demo for it. I don't know, hopefully I didn't add to confusion on how it actually works. But a lot of people who have used it, they've found it extremely useful. As the version exists right now, there currently isn't a user level of filtering on the list of hosts and services. So if you're in a situation that it requires multi-tenancy, where you don't want people to see every single host and service, it currently doesn't support that yet. But again, that will be in the 2012 release. That's part of what I'm working on right now, is that you'll be able to have a list of authorized people who can add and create groups and delete them, as well as just non-administrative users. They will only be able to see the services that they are assigned contacts for. So that's a feature that's coming up for that as well. Questions on Nagios BPI, future developments, things that you'd like to see? Yes, sir. The question was, with the host group assignments, will that auto-update as you change your host groups? What I'd like to have it do is essentially just flag the actual host group, so it will pull in whatever member is in it, and it will let you, it won't set any flags as far as essential members or thresholds. You'll have to come in after and do that, but the idea would be that it would just basically just pull any member of that host group and then bring them into the group, and then it will just determine status based on what's considered an essential member and what the thresholds are. Yes, and that's actually been a feature. Thank you for asking that, actually, because the other thing I do want to add to this, because I've had some people ask, is that they also kind of want to know what's going on recursively in each of these groups. So I also want to add essentially like a pop-up box that you can click on one of these groups and essentially get recursive health percentages, recursive statistics for, okay, how many hosts and services are actually in this group, what's the health percentage of everything underneath this group, maybe some little bit of visualizations just for health percentages for, a recursive look. But yes, somebody did ask for, I want to set my threshold based on a percentage, and that is something that's on my to-do list for one of the rules you can set for it. So, yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, the hosts and services, you can configure the alerts, for those individually. So if you wanted to disable alerts for the individual services, you could, and then set up a BPI check for the group as a whole and use that as your alerting system. Is that it? Okay. So let's say, mhm. Yeah, the face roll on the keyboard, yep. Okay. Yep. Yep, and so and that's essentially, I wrote a very, very simple plugin called Check BPI, and that does exist for the community project as well. And it essentially, all it basically does is, behind the scenes, it crunches the data for all the BPI groups and then just requests the status of a particular group. It's just a simple status check for a group that just looks at, if the group is, okay, warning, or critical, it will, show that status in Nagios XI. So you can use the actual group check as an alerting system. Now, a current limitation is that that group check doesn't do any kind of like syncing. So like if you just delete that group altogether and you still have a check running for it, you'll just get an unknown status. But yeah, that check right now, it's kind of primitive. It basically, all it does is it says, is the group okay, warning, or critical, and then it just gives you a simple problem count for its immediate children. Something else I want to add to the actual check plugin is feedback of like why it's in a okay, warning, or critical state. Basically, say threshold percentages, exceeded, and then give you maybe a few more statistics underneath that. That's again, future development. Hopefully 2012 we'll have that. But right now it's just a simple up-down check is, how's the state, what's the state of this group? And you can use that for alerting. Yes. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I'll repeat the question. He was just asking if you wanted to put one of these processes on a NagViz map, you just create a BPI check against that group, and yep, that'd be an easy way to do it. Again, for Nagios XI, we've got a BPI wizard which just populates the list of groups for you, and the check is very, very simple. It basically you just give it the group ID, which you can just mouse over, and gives you the ID. And so you just say check BPI and then a single argument for the group name or the group ID, and that's all I need to do. And I've got there's a document on library.nagios.com on using, and it's also on exchange.nagios.org on using the BPI add-on. And it documents the logic of BPI as well as how to set up a check against a BPI group as well. And so it's something that's, like I said, I've gotten a lot of very, very positive feedback about it, a lot of feature requests for it. It's a community project. Ironically, we kind of laugh because it's lots and lots of feature requests. So far, nobody's offered to contribute for it. I can live with that okay because I consider myself somewhat of a hack sometimes when it comes to my PHP. So, but working on improving it and kind of house cleaning on the code right now, so it's easier for a community member to jump in and chip in. But I do want to. I think you're going to see a lot more of this kind of monitoring in the future. Anders Hoel gave a really cool presentation on business activity monitoring this morning, and I totally agree with what he's talking about, in that we need to think about monitoring in the context of overall what's going on with the business. And I think as we do that too, it's just going to, company-wide, that's going to improve things overall. So how am I doing on time? 5? Okay. All right. And let me quick plow through one other thing on this. I'm going to show one other visualization, and this is something currently it's unique to Nagios XI, and this is a Graph Explorer component, and it's basically utilizing a graphing library called HighCharts, and HighCharts.com. It's a great graphing tool that you can basically plug your data into. Like a developer license costs about $1,000, so if you need to develop your own internal tools, I highly recommend it. It's very, very cool, and it's very, very easy to plug your data into. So I basically use it. The Graph Explorer component has just a few graphs initially. I've got one where just top alert producers in the last 24 hours lets you quickly identify problem areas. Host health, it's just a nice pie charts. You can click into any of these to see all your filter list of down hosts. It's nice interactive graphs. Management loves stuff like this. And then scalable performance graph. Let me pull up a website here. That one's not very interesting. That one's even less interesting. There we go. Okay, something with something on it. And it basically, once the data is loaded in for the time period that you select, you can zoom and scale pretty much at whatever rate you need to. Let me show one with multiple layers of data here too. And some of these take a little longer to load. There we go. All right, so this one's got a few layers of data on it. This is just a current load for the local hosts, 1, 5, and 15 minutes overlaid. And you can still zoom and scale as you need to, but what's nice is that you can also interactively turn sets of data off and on, and it will rescale the graph based on what's there. And like I said, I didn't do any of the cool eye candy part of this. This is all high charts, but it's a great way to visualize your data. And I've just come to like it because I can quickly look at, hey, where's the problem area? And if you mouse over a certain point on the graph, it gives you the actual data, and it gives you the point in time as well for when it was. So I find it to be a handy tool. And the other thing I did with this was a time-stacked performance graph where it overlays periods of time. So if I want to see the current load for localhost for the last 3 days, it will overlay that information for me, and so I can actually compare. I can look at, hey, what was 3 days ago? I want to just look at last 24 hours. Okay, compare that with the day before, and add the day before that to it as a layer as well. Because a lot of people are asking, is there any way I can easily compare data on top of each other? Now, this only works with a single data set right now. Something we'd like to do for the future is basically be able to overlay. You can pick and choose, say, 3 or 4 services and say, I want to see these 3 or 4 services overlaid on a single graph, and then I want to be able to, turn them off and on just like this. That's something we've talked about for the future. Don't have it ready yet, but it's a pretty friendly library to work with, and if you have developers who are familiar with JavaScript and JSON, they can pretty much plug data into a graphing library like this pretty quickly. So you have to purchase a developer license to be able to use it in anything that's basically not for personal use, but we found it to be very, very worth it. It's just a great tool overall. So, yes, sir. Currently, this is a customer-only download, so it is available on our Nagios library, but it just requires an activated copy of XI. So, how am I doing on time? Ooh, gotten close. I got probably time for one more question, if anybody has one. All right, well, cool. I love feature requests and ideas. And I love building tools like this. I think they're the most fun to work on and develop. And so if there's areas where it's like you're missing something that is critical for your business or for your monitoring environment, we love ideas. We love feature requests and just feedback in general, it really helps us because I get the most joy as a developer when I make something that you guys are using every single day that totally makes your job better. And that's what fires me up as a developer. So knowing that we're making stuff that really helps you guys out, that's what we love to do. And so by all means, if you guys want, you can grab my business card. If there's an idea or something you want to chat with me about by email, I love ideas, love feedback. So don't be afraid to chat with us and give us ideas. So, yes, sir.
How can people contribute to Nagios BPI? What's the best place to go about doing that?
That's a good question. For Nagios BPI, it's actually hosted on SourceForge under the Nagios project tree. So if you go on SourceForge and you view the source code, it's got the Nagios core project. It also has vShell, and it has NDO utils, several other projects. It also has Nagios BPI, so you can view the current source code for that. For the new overhaul that I'm doing right now, I currently brought that into our internal tree because, like I said, I'm using Nagios XI as a pilot for that, and I didn't want to completely flood the commit log with stuff I'm doing every single day, committing to it until I have something for the actual community project for that. But I do intend to do that in early 2012 as well. But I love contributions because I find that's when other people chip in. They'll see things that I don't, and you know, many minds can write better code than one. So, and I'm thinking I'm out of time. So, thank you guys. I appreciate it.